Hello, I'm Kamal Santamaria. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, France and its famous 35-hour working week, a symbol of work-life balance for many of its passionate defenders, but the government wants adjustments to cut the country's unemployment rate. We'll take a look at what labour reform would mean for France. Also this week, Switzerland, where chocolate and watches are abundant and expensive. Swiss manufacturers are complaining their products are becoming too pricey in the international market because of the stronger Swiss franc. We'll investigate the clockwork behind Switzerland's economy. And in Argentina, life's given them lemons, but making lemonade has been tough. For 15 years, the United States has been a closed market. But perhaps there's a change coming in those sour relations. So we're looking at France this week, the second largest economy in the Eurozone, and a country where over the years the unemployment rate has stayed stubbornly at 10% of the workforce, which means, not surprisingly, the French government has been trying to overhaul its labour market. New employment laws are on the table, ones the socialist government says will make France more competitive and help tackle that record 10.6% unemployment, but which students, workers and unions have denounced as an attack on their rights. Let's run you through what is being proposed. First of all, companies would be given more flexibility to strike deals on increasing working hours. Remembering, as we said, France is well known for that 35-hour working week. The new plan also increases the right of unskilled workers to training, so that is something in favour of the people. But it would also allow for a company to invoke what's called economic reasons, specific economic reasons, to justify layoffs. They could cite such things as falling sales or operating losses. So it's all looking very pro-business, and guess what? French workers, all the country's major trade unions, the students, they don't like the sound of any of it. They've been out protesting for the past few weeks, saying the reforms would mostly damage the current laws which are aimed at protecting workers. They don't like the government's spin that these reforms would encourage companies to take on more workers on permanent contracts rather than temporary ones. Now, the government has watered down the proposals, things like removing the cap on payouts after a dismissal, but it is unlikely to calm that anger. Changing France's labour code is looking like an uphill struggle.
Avec Myriam el-Khomri et Emmanuel Macron,
Myriam, el-Khomri, Emmanuel Macron and I understand employees who fear their fate is in the hands of the goodwill of employers. We want to reassure them. We want to provide all guarantees that the relationship remains balanced so there is not a power struggle that works against the employees.
So let's try to understand the rationale behind all of this a little better. Joining us from Paris is Jean-Marc, an economist at ESCP Europe, which is the world's oldest business school. Jean-Marc, it's easy to understand why the students and the unions and the workers are unhappy because, well, it makes it easier to dismiss them, and yet the government says it will actually improve employment. To me, something is not right here. Can you explain your views on who you think really benefits from the proposed changes?
I think the government is right, and I think that people in the protest movement are wrong. Why? Because when you look at the other countries like Spain or Italy or UK or Germany, they have changed the rule of the game on their labor market, and they have got an improvement in the situation of unemployment, and they have got an improvement in the situation of their economic growth. First, we have to see that at the first beginning of a reform, you have what is called a drawback, a real drawback of this reform, due to the fact that, for instance, at the moment, if you give to the French undertakings the right to fire easily the one share of their people, they will use this right, this new right. But after 2 or 3 months, you can get a real improvement in the situation. We have seen that in Spain, we have seen that in Italy, and I think that we will see that in France if the law is voted.
So you're trying to say that on paper the theory is correct, but you could surely understand why people would be, at the very least, nervous about the situation. Yes, they might get the job, but is the stability and the security there? It doesn't feel like that.
I think that for the French people, we are in a bad economic situation. So they ask for something, but they are often in a situation of the doubt about the ability of their government to change really the situation. They know that we have a high level of unemployment, 10%. We have a level of unemployment which is twice that of Germany or UK. But they don't think that this government is able to do something really concrete, really efficient. So when the government make decisions, the answer is, are you sure? Are you able really to change our daily life? And on the other hand, we have to see that the people in the streets are young people and are members of the public service. In reality, they are not directly concerned by the evolution of unemployment. When you belong to public service, you are never threatened by unemployment. So the trade unions use these people to fight against the government. But I think that a lot of people in the population are not on the same line as these people, as the trade unions and the youth organization.
You've made a lot of comparisons with a place like Spain, and I don't really know if that's a fair comparison. After all, Spain's unemployment situation was much, much worse. I'm not saying France's isn't bad, but Spain's was really acute. And, you know, a more sort of radical types of measures were probably what were needed there.
Yes, in Spain, for instance, the level of unemployment was about 25% at the beginning of 2012, and when Mr. Rajoy decided to change the rule of the game. But if you look at what happened after, we have a period in which unemployment increased just after the reform. And then in 2014 and 2015, about 1 million of jobs have been created. So the situation was obviously worse than in France, but the improvement is very, very strong. So we can think that in France we need not such a revolution in our labor market, but we need something, we have to do something. Let's go to Italy, for instance. Mr. Renzi has changed the rule of the game with a new law called the Job Act. We have the same evolution in the labor market of Italy. At the beginning of last year, the unemployment has increased. And now at the moment, Italy has been created 200,000 of jobs. That we need in France. We need, for the moment, 200,000 of jobs. Last year, we have created in France only 50,000, and unemployment is higher than ever.
And still ahead on counting the cost, it's part plane, part airship, part helicopter, and can land anywhere. Later on, we'll take a look at the world's largest aircraft, which has just come on the market. Before we do that, though, let's travel to Switzerland, the country of low taxes, economic stability, strong infrastructure, efficient capital markets, and really, really good chocolate. The thing is, out of all those things, the chocolate's probably the most secure these days. Consumer prices have been falling, exports are suffering, and unemployment is rising as Swiss companies try to keep costs under control. And it can, broadly speaking, all be traced back to January of 2015, when the Swiss central bank abandoned its cap on the value of the Swiss franc. As a result, there's been a huge rise in the strength of the currency. At the time the cap was lifted in 2015, January, the start of the year, a massive spike of 22.9% versus the euro. That has since leveled out to around 9.6%, but still a solid rise for only a year and a bit. But if you go right back to the days before the cap came in, there's actually been a 56% increase against the euro since the lows of 2007. Long term, that is a huge adjustment. And it's having big effects too. Unemployment's on the rise. Projections are as high as 3.7% for this year, up from 3.3% in 2015. And the economy as a whole is not much better, just 1.2% growth expected for this coming year. And yet, Switzerland persists with the uncapped currency. We're going to try to figure out why now with Dr. Sergio Rossi, a professor of economics at the University of Freiburg in Switzerland, joining us via Skype. Dr. Rossi, over a year now since the currency cap was lifted, how would you assess the success or otherwise of that moment? Because As we pointed out, Switzerland has now had to live with this very strong currency, which does make life difficult.
Yes, it makes life difficult, but in fact, after more than 3 years, when this exchange rate floor was in place, firms have been having enough time to adjust their structure, strategies, and perspectives. So I think that it was not really appropriate to introduce this exchange rate floor back in 2011 or in September 2011, if I remember correctly, because in the end, the exchange rate was certainly going to remain appreciated or even overvalued in light of the fact that the euro area was still in a crisis. But this exchange rate floor was, in my view, also dangerous as regards financial stability in Switzerland, because we have noticed that since then, over the 3-year period when the exchange rate floor was in place, a number of prices, the real estate market in particular, were overheating, and this might lead to financial instability, which in the end might be very dangerous for the whole economic system and economic stability as regards this country.
Frankly, none of this sounds good for the Swiss economy, and yet here we are still in this position. Shouldn't the Swiss central bank and the government be doing something if it is having such a negative effect?
Well, I already suggested 3 or more years ago that the Swiss economy should abandon this exchange rate floor, and which eventually occurred 1 year and a few months ago, but replacing it with a kind of Tobin tax, namely a tax, a small tax, but still relevant, to be perceived on all Swiss exchange transactions that have been carried out vis-à-vis the rest of the world. If I am residing in Switzerland, I'm buying Swiss francs or selling Swiss francs, I don't need to pay this tax. But if I am a non-resident in Switzerland and I'm going to buy Swiss francs because I want to have a safe haven or just because I'm speculating, well, then I have to pay such a tax, and such a tax would first reduce the overvaluation of the Swiss franc, so help our Swiss firms exporting more, or secondly, it might increase the tax receipts of the Swiss Confederation, which might be used to help those firms which are really suffering from the crisis or from the Swiss franc overvaluation. Whereas in the current situation, the Swiss National Bank has replaced this minimum exchange rate floor with negative rates of interest, which are actually a burden on both savers, especially the pension funds in Switzerland, and banks, because banks have to pay interest instead of receiving one from the central bank. And this leads banks to turn to risky business, which might also in the end affect the bank's own financial stability. And if banks are in trouble, the whole Swiss economy will be in trouble eventually.
Yeah, it will. So that is your suggestion. What chance of anything like that actually happening? You know, you talked about a taxation on non-residents. That is one of the very things about Switzerland, is it not, which actually attracts investors there?
Yes, but if the tax rate is close to zero but still positive, it would discourage those high-frequency trading activities based on the Swiss franc without any link to the real economy in Switzerland, and will not actually discourage exports or those investors having a long-term interest in investing in Switzerland. And I think it is the least worst alternative out there.
So that's the view of an economist. What about a Swiss business person? Switzerland, of course, famous for many brands, among them luxury watchmaker Tag Heuer. I spoke to its CEO Jean-Claude Bivel last week. You heard some of his comments then on China. Here now is our full interview on the watch business, the state of the Swiss economy, and the future of luxury versus smartwatches.
Yeah, the watch business is a little bit slower than it used to be. We had a weak January. I don't know how was February, probably also a little bit weak. But for us, for me, for Tag Heuer, we have done double-digit growth in January, double-digit growth in February, and we will again do double-digit growth in March. So for our brand, we are doing quite well. But in general, I think the Swiss watch industry, the exports are down for the 3 first months of the year, which doesn't avoid certain brands like ours to overperform.
So tell us the reasons then for those underperforming watch businesses. It's obviously to do with the Swiss currency, but what else?
Oh, the currency is of course a problem. There is war, there's a currency war in the world. And you know what the Swiss have done? The Swiss franc took 20% last year in January, which was a catastrophe. And then we have all the currencies, the yen and the yuan. Every currency is a problem for us because the Swiss franc is so strong against any currency. But we have coped with it. First, we have increased prices by 5 to 8%, which is not enough, I know. But on the other side, we have done a big job on our operating expenses. We have gained some productivity. We have asked some people to work maybe 2 hours more per week. So all these measures are bringing us back to more or less normal, but nevertheless we still lose 5 to 7% margins because of the Swiss franc, and we cannot adjust. And now that the mood is not very favorable, the mood is not so good in the world at the moment, so it's not time to increase prices because of the currency. So we are going on to suffer, and we are going on to find solutions and to be creative how we can reduce our expenses.
Okay, so let's move on then to the types of watches. And if you'll just indulge me for a moment, I want to tell you a personal story, okay? In the year since I last spoke to you, I gave up wearing my Tag Heuer watch, which I'd worn for 10 years, and I went into the world of connected watches, okay? I'm showing it to everyone. I've got an Apple Watch here. And I have surprised myself because I'm not sure I would actually go back to a classic watch. Now, I am very much converted to the idea of the wearable, which makes me wonder, what would you do to win a person like me back to a classic Tag watch? Do you even want to bring me back to a classic watch, or are you as well convinced about the future of connected watches?
The Tag Heuer Connected will be back on your wrist. If you are already a connected guy and you have a connected watch on your wrist, you will love the Tag Heuer.
Oh, yeah?
Because the Tag Heuer has the same features, works the same as the one you have now on your wrist. But the Tag Heuer, the difference is it looks like a real watch, and it's very attractive. And it's super light, it's in titanium. And if one day you want to give the watch to your son, you can come back to us and we will change you the model, and we will replace the electronic model by a real mechanical model, and that's a big advantage. So I'm happy to have you back at Tag Heuer. It's great. And I'm looking forward for the next interview with you with your Tag Heuer on your wrist.
Okay, we'll see. It sounds like you're trying to sell me a watch here. Clearly, though, you do believe in the future of wearables. Tell me about how much Tag Heuer is putting into that, because Tag Heuer is a classic luxury watch brand. That's what you are known for, but you're clearly anticipating the changes, the way things are moving.
Yes, we have invested 10 million so far. We're going to invest another 10-15 million this year. We have done this huge partnership with Intel, a huge partnership also with Google, and we believe strongly, I really believe in the connected watch. I wear my connected watch constantly too, and I must say, it is just genius. And I'm totally amazed how comfortable, how great the watch is. And we believe that next year we might sell already maybe half or 40% of our sales, not in value, but in numbers, in pieces, might be the connected watch. So the connected watch has legs. And the connected watch, what we should never forget, we are in Stone Age. The connected watch has such a future. In 5 years, you cannot imagine what the connected watch will be able to do. And so the people who not believe now, they better wake up, I would say, provided they are in a price segment where the connected watch can enter. A brand that I'm looking also after, like Hublot, cannot come with a connected watch because the first price of a Hublot is $6,000. So they cannot offer suddenly a connected watch at 1,000 or 1,500. They would destroy their whole price segment.
So how about we talk again in another 12 months' time and we'll see what's on my wrist then.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm looking forward to next year.
Now to Argentina, which was in the news this week for its first state visit by a US president in 25 years. President Obama even danced the famous tango, so you know it was serious. But there is some genuine belief that this trip could create the right moves in the Argentine economy as well. Teresa Bo has our report.
Argentina is one of the world's leading lemon exporters, but shipping them to the United States has been impossible for more than 15 years. That's why José Escudero is looking forward to Barack Obama's visit, because there's a chance it may help his industry export to the United States once again. We're hoping for an announcement on lemon exports. It's been a closed market for us, but we're hearing that imports could be opened again.
There are dozens of companies like this one all around the country that are hoping to benefit from a better relationship with the United States. Many here see Obama's visit as a sign of support to Argentina's new president, Mauricio Macri, and as a way of helping this country turn the page to the financial isolation it has seen during the last 12 years.
Argentina has been an outcast of the international financial community since the economic crisis in 2001, when Argentina defaulted on its sovereign debt. Then, during the center-left government of Néstor and Cristina Kirchner, Argentina was closer to China and Venezuela than the United States. Trade and currency restrictions in recent years scared many potential investors away. The recently elected government of Mauricio Macri is focusing on opening Argentina for business once again.
We are not looking for one economic partner, but many economic partners. We want to work with the world. The US is a world power, and of course it will play a key role.
Argentina has historically been considered anti-American. The last time a US president visited was in 2005, when George Bush attended the Summit of the Americas. Thousands protested his presence then. Now, many are opposing Obama's visit because it coincides with the 40th anniversary of the coup, which many say brought a brutal dictatorship to power.
Many here don't support US because it supported the dictatorship that killed thousands of political opponents.
Obama's visit opens a new chapter between Argentina and the United States, and many here are hoping to see the benefits soon.
Finally, this week, engineers in the UK have unveiled one of the world's biggest flying machines. At this stage, it sort of defies definition. It looks like an airship, but it works more like a plane or a helicopter and is more environmentally friendly than both. But what would this wonder of the skies actually be used for? Emma Hayward takes a look.
It is the world's tallest and longest aircraft, dwarfing everything else in sight. And the Airlander 10 doesn't even need a proper runway to take off. Filled with helium, this vast vessel will soon be able to carry cargo and people. Inside the cockpit, the controls are a mixture of airship and plane, both of which David Burns is used to piloting.
It's a very pleasant ride because the engines are very far away. The engines at the back are some 70 metres behind the cabin, and the engines at the front here are up round the side, so you can't hear them again. So all you hear is some wind noise. And if you're flying, if there's any turbulence or a rough windy day, for instance, it's all a very gentle motion.
The dimensions of the Airlander 10 show why it'll be easy to spot in the skies. At 92 metres long and just over 43 metres wide, it's larger than the biggest passenger aircraft currently flying, the Airbus A380. That's 73 metres long with a wingspan of 80 metres. But both are far smaller than the ill-fated Hindenburg class of airships built by Germany in the 1930s. Back then, and when this hangar was at the centre of the UK's airship industry, the balloons would be filled with flammable hydrogen. Now it's helium, making them safer and easier to manoeuvre. When this is airbound, it will use about a third as much fuel as a regular big aircraft. It also has the potential to stay up in the air for weeks on end. The aircraft was originally commissioned for the US military to carry out surveillance work in Afghanistan. But the project was abandoned before the aircraft was used, and the designers brought it back to Britain to modify and rebuild it, adapting it so surveillance work might not be its only use.
It can land on water, it can land on ice and snow and grass, deserts, and this means it can go anywhere and take heavy loads and people from point to point. So the most amazing thing it can do to start with is help in disasters.
Test flights will start later this year. Then the engineering team is hoping the sky will be the limit.
And that's our show for this week, but there's more for you online at aljazeera.com/CTC. That'll take you straight to our page, which has individual reports, links and entire episodes for you to catch up on. You can also get in touch with us by tweeting me at KamalAJE. Do use the hashtag AJCTC when you do. Or just drop us an email. countingthecost@aljazeera.net is the address. That is it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Kamal Santamaria from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.